So during lockdown, it took quite a while for me and my wife to kind of work out what the best routine was for trying to do our jobs and me for running my business and homeschool the kids and kind of keep our sanity. And in the end, we actually came up with a routine that worked really well for us. And now that in January 2021 we're back in lockdown, we've slipped back into our old routine to try and work with the children. And it's kind of working okay so far. So what I want to do in this video is I'm going to switch over to some slides and I'm just going to walk you through what our routine was. Now it'd be interesting to know whether this routine is similar to what you did if you have children or whether you did something completely different. But I thought it'd just be interesting just to kind of document what the process was because it's starting to work out reasonably well, although we do want our lives back. So before I go through mine and my wife's routine, I just want to make clear of a couple of points. So first of all, when I discuss this, I'm probably making it sound easier than what it actually was. Sometimes this was incredibly hard to follow, but we generally try to keep to this pattern. So don't watch this and think, oh, it must be so easy for them, but I'm struggling. This was hard, and it took us a long while to kind of settle into this routine, and I'll explain why as we go through it. But also, not every day was the same. So my wife's company, she's a full-time employee. She's worked from home for over 15 years. And her company's been pretty good, actually. So they've said they want us to do some work early in the morning just to get through some of the emails and support tickets that she has to do. Then they let her have a large part of the morning to flip between work and homeschooling. So my wife tends to cover a lot of the homeschooling in the morning with my son. And then kind of in the afternoon, I try and sort of take over and switch around between my son and daughter. So, we really are quite grateful for them because they have been amazingly flexible, which has been very good. But it's not always this case. Sometimes we do need to chop and change. So if my wife has an important meeting she has to attend, then we do kind of have to adapt as we go along. And obviously with what I do, because I'm self-employed, that gives me quite a lot of flexibility because I have no one to answer to. So most of the contracted bits of work that I do are for Pluralsight, and they're very flexible. Once you sign a course, you generally get 90 days, and you don't have someone breathing down your neck asking you what's going on. They kind of trust you to get on with it. So with that, let's kind of look at the timetable we've got here. So my wife's name is Amanda, as you can see from the screen, and I'm Stephen. Hello. So I've got a timetable written here. So starting from 6 AM, which is when we wake up, going through till about 10 o'clock at night, which is quite a long day. So we wake up at 6, we both, sit in bed, have several coffees, watch the news and just chat and just get started for the day. 7 AM, my wife goes into the home office upstairs and she will get on with her own work. So she works in IT support for a large IT company. So she has to go through emails, support tickets and just kind of get a handle on what's going on throughout the day. So while she's doing that, I go and get the kids' breakfast sorted out. So I feed them, then I clear all that away. Then I'll make sure they get dressed and brush their teeth and all the usual things you have to argue with kids about. So we set a rule in the household, and that is that everyone has to be up and dressed and ready. So no lounging about in pyjamas. It's like you have to be ready on time to do your work, which is kind of what we strive for. So 8 AM, my wife starts work with my son, and I supervise my daughter whilst doing my own work. So when I say my wife works with my son, it started out that she had to spend a huge amount of time pretty much sitting with him constantly. We're actually at a point now, because he's got ADHD and autism, but we've actually got to a point now where we just have to kind of set him off on the work, explain what's going on with the task, walk through the task with him, and then we can leave him for a period of time where he just gets on with the work, and then my wife will go back and check in with him. So she does get to do some bits of work during that time, but generally she allocates that time for working with my son. My daughter's in high school, so what I do is I kind of have to encourage her to come downstairs to do her work. So again, I walk through the tasks with her, I make sure she knows what she's doing, and then we leave her to get on with some of that work, because she should be able to work unattended at her age. And whilst you're doing that, I'm in the next room and I'm kind of trying to do bits of my own work, although there's constant interruptions. But I'm constantly checking in on her, making sure that's going okay. So between 9 and 10, exactly the same thing happens. So my wife's working with my son, I'm working with my daughter. Same between 11 and 12. At 12 o'clock, my wife goes out for a walk, so she'll spend the hour just going out and getting her exercise for the day. We live in a little town called Belper in Derbyshire in the UK. Very, very scenic, lots of countryside, lots of hills. So my wife will go and do her walk. While she's doing that, I'm making lunch for everyone. So because I've got the more flexible job, I'm basically the chief cook in the house at the moment. So breakfast, lunch and dinner is my responsibility. Which when you have to do it every day, it's a bit like running a cafe. It gets quite hard sometimes. So I'll do that, give everyone their lunch, make sure it's all cleared away. And then at 1 o'clock, my wife basically has to go upstairs and she has to get on with her work. So she needs to be present for her job in the afternoon. So I supervise my daughter, but again, she should be working largely unattended, but I have to kind of start off her lesson, make sure she understands it, and then just check in with her throughout the hour. And then I spend some time working with my son. So because most of what I do is writing, my wife tends to leave a lot of his English lessons till the afternoon so that I can focus on those, which I actually really enjoy doing. Again, 2 till 3, exactly the same. So my wife's upstairs doing her work and I'm kind of flitting between both the kids. At 3 o'clock, my wife's still upstairs doing the work. By 3 o'clock, both the kids are basically done with their schoolwork, which is good. We try and get them done by 3 o'clock. At that point, I go out and do my walk. So I go out for an hour, try and get a brisk walk, a bit of exercise and some fresh air, especially before it gets dark at the moment because it is still winter. Actually, one of my favourite parts of the day is just getting out for an hour, getting the headphones on, listening to a podcast, just getting some exercise. I really enjoy it. So 4 o'clock, so between 4 and 5, so my wife is still working upstairs, and my responsibility now is to make everyone's dinner. So for dinner for me and my wife, son and daughter. Sometimes at the weekend I might sort of batch make a big batch of spaghetti bolognese sauce or a chili or some curries or something. That kind of makes it easier throughout the week. Or failing that, sometimes I just can't be bothered to do anything good, so it's just normally waffles, fish fingers and broccoli. But there you go. 5 to 6 p.m. My wife's still working. I also try and get an hour's worth of work done at this point, and the kids are just playing on their computers, chatting to friends, playing computer games. Again, the same between 6 and 7, so me and my wife are just both trying to catch up. Because my wife works for a full-time employed company, she still has to do her hours. They're just giving her flexibility around when she does them, so she has to make sure she gets her work done. And I'm trying to finish a book, and I'm also producing a new course of Pluralsight, so I need to make sure that I keep momentum on that going. 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock is the kids' bedtime routine. So, baths and showers if necessary, get them in their bed clothes. Both of them now, we've managed to get the habit into them. They do half an hour worth of reading before bed. So even if they don't do any reading during the day, they always do half an hour reading of some fiction before bed, which they both enjoy. Because my son's got ADHD and Autism, it's actually really hard instilling that habit in him. But we managed to do it last year during the first lockdown, and it's stuck as a habit, which is fantastic. By 8 o'clock, me and my wife are kind of thoroughly knackered at that point, so we'll just either catch up on any work that we've got left. Typically we try and make sure we're done by 8, but it's not always the case. And then we just flake out on the sofa in front of the TV and just watch something on TV. Then by that point, by 9 o'clock, we are done. We're finished. So between 9 and 10, we'll go upstairs. We'll both read in bed for half an hour. Mostly because it's a really good way of just shutting down your brain. And so it's kind of like a mental signal to your brain that, now we're shutting down. Read for half an hour, makes you sleepy, and go to sleep. And then, 10 o'clock, lights out, we'll go all the way through until 6 a.m. the next day, and then we start the whole routine all over again. So when you look at it on the screen like that, it makes it kind of sound super easy, doesn't it? But it's not. So there are challenges. My daughter doesn't enjoy doing schoolwork. I'll just admit that now. So sometimes it can be a bit of a persuasion exercise, trying to get her downstairs to actually do the work. So that's always fun. My son, now he's on ADHD medication, actually he's pretty good with just getting on with his work, which is fantastic. But say sometimes the routine changes, so if my wife has to have a very important urgent meeting in the morning, which she can't rearrange, then she'll go off and do that, and then I will try and supervise both of them in the morning. So there's a bit of give and flex around it, but typically this is the routine we try and stick to. So this is what we're doing at the minute. I have no idea how long this routine is going to last for us in the UK at the minute, because the schools are closed. There's kind of hints from the government that schools may reopen for March the 8th. I really hope they do if it's safe to do so, but until then, this is kind of what we're doing every day, Monday to Friday. Weekends we try and relax as much as possible, although to be honest, me and my wife spend a lot of time just catching up on work, which is kind of one of the necessary evils, I guess. Lockdown this time has been a bit easier with schoolwork. So the schools are all using Google Classroom now, so there's proper work being set. We have lots of different live video lessons as well, which is kind of helpful. So it's a bit more organised this time, whereas in the first lockdown in 2020 it was very chaotic with work being set and being marked by the teacher. So it's better this time. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of the routine that me and my wife try and stick to. It's hard, but this kind of routine works for us with the kind of work provisions that we have in place. So with that, I'll see you next time. Thank you.